goal was always to furnish a value at the best possible price for the consumer.
We had tires stacked everywhere. I mean, there must have been only 10,000 or 15,000 tires.
We've been able to get our revenues up to about $1.4 billion.
It's mind-boggling to think of where the little town of Batesville would be had there not been a Dunlap car.
He is an amazing man on many fronts. His generosity knows no bounds.
He's one of Mississippi's greatest success stories.
He said, everybody says that I'm a really smart businessman, but he said, I think I'm a better judge of character.
I can't even put into words what it's done for my life, what it's done for my family's life.
It would have been hard to find a better man to work for than Bob Dunlap.
His two passions, in addition to business, are Boy Scouts and conservation.
I don't know of anybody that does as much for reforestation as Mr. Bob does.
Setting aside 12,000 acres of hardwood bottomland in the middle of the Mississippi River.
It's a success story of restoration.
His generosity is just incredible, and he keeps coming back to what are we going to do to help Mississippi?
Bob knows in his heart that the reason he's where he is today is because of the people that are working there.
I got your coat in your bag.
You having trouble hooking it up?
He got it hooked up just before I showed up.
That looks like a good one coming up out there. I was born November the 8th, 1929. They had a milk cow in town. They had chickens, and you raised a lot of your own food. They'd kill hogs over there. My grandmother made butter. It was just an entirely different world. There was just no money. Growing up, my father started automobile business with his first cousin named Hudson Kyle. And I still have that financial statement. Kyle put up $1,000, and he was a full partner with Daddy.
Bob's daddy, Mr. Jack Dunlap, had the Chevrolet dealership. He had that dealership for years and was very successful.
Daddy and them over there selling were real aggressive. They sold used cars, all kind of cars, all through the Delta, all the way to Greenville.
This property was a mule barn at that time. Then when the war started, it became a junkyard. You had to sell used cars and junk parts and old motors and everything because people couldn't get parts to go on the cars that they had. It was all going to the war.
Back then, we sold everything, tires and parts, paint, batteries. When I went off to college in fall of 47, my father wanted me to go to Millsaps one year. He's paying tuition, so he got to choose the first 2 years, and the last 2 years I go where I wanted to. And he picked Millsaps. That was a tough school down there. But after 1 year, the Korean War was going on, and he wanted me to come up to Ole Miss and get in the Naval ROTC.
He was in the ROTC at the university, and so that when he graduated from the university, he went in as an ensign.
They sent an officer down from D.C. to assign us what duty we're going to have. It's going to be sea duty. Another buddy of mine up there, he had orders going to a ship going to the Mediterranean. We took this personnel officer out of Washington to the officers club and got him drunk. He switched the orders. My buddy went to the carrier going to the Pacific. And I went to the Everglades going to the Mediterranean. That was a good deal.
He said it was a 2-year Mediterranean vacation.
I've told people I didn't have any money, but I should have been paying them. We did Barcelona, Spain, French Riviera, Augusta Bay, Sicily, Naples, Athens, Greece, Istanbul, Turkey. How could you beat that? That Everglades is where I met Glenn McKittrick.
Part of his responsibilities and the way he got to know Dad is they would drive into town in whatever port they were in and go to the bank and collect, pick up the money to pay everybody on that ship, and they paid them in cash.
And he said he'd have a 45 on his each, maybe one or two, I don't know, and they just walk along with a briefcase just plumb full of money. Take it back to the ship and pay everybody.
Presumably there were hundreds and hundreds of people on that boat. And so Bob had a 45, and he guarded Daddy and the money and brought him to Batesville, Mississippi, and guarded Daddy and the money for the rest of his life.
I thought about staying in the Navy, but I kept thinking about I grew up with hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. And I just decided to come on back. I missed all that.
When he got out of the Navy, he came back, and he didn't want to be in the automobile business either. He wanted to be over here with the parts department and the junk cars and the used cars and all of that sort of thing. But then he sort of branched off into the tire business.
Daddy got out of the service a year before Bob. He wrote him a letter, and he contacted his dad and Mr. Jack Dunlap in Batesville, and sent Mom and Dad to Batesville, Mississippi to meet Jack Dunlap at Southside Chevrolet, and he gave him a job until Bob got out of the service a year later and came back to Mississippi, and they started building this tire company.
He said, I'm gonna furnish something that everybody needs all the time. And tires is one thing people always need.
He went to tire conventions and that sort of thing and started meeting people in the tire business and getting to know them and how exactly you did it.
Started off with 3 or 4 folks working out of a mule barn, selling a few tires.
When Daddy got into the business, he had veterans as salesmen, people that were in World War II. And they would do anything. Whatever needed to be done, they would do it.
There were some tough people. Any of them that are still living, I've told them that Japs didn't stand a snowball chance in hell fighting them. They can forget it.
There was no expectation of working an 8-hour day, that everybody worked 10, 12, 14, 16 hours.
When I first went there, we worked 6 days a week. Saturday was the busiest day of them all.
Those guys would go out on Monday morning before daylight. They wouldn't come back till Friday afternoon late. They stayed out all week, and then they would come in every Saturday morning and have a sales meeting. Then they'd load up on Saturday and they'd head back out.
These guys were so dedicated to the customers that they had that they went out there and personally checked their orders to be sure that every tire that they had promised was going to be delivered was on that truck. And they would drive that truck home. They'd leave out on Monday morning and get their tires delivered.
It's like a Swiss train. I mean, if we're going to be in Pontotoc at 7 o'clock, well, we're going to be there at 7 o'clock.
Glenn McKittrick, Tommy Marshall, and others, they'd come up at night. We had so much paperwork, we'd get it done then, but there was somebody always there. And they absolutely didn't care how long it took.
Hard work and being the best you could be is just part of the Dunlap DNA.
They didn't have a key to the Southside Chevrolet over there. They were open all the time.
But it was 2 shifts, 6 in the morning, 6 at night, 6 at night, 6 in the morning. It's crazy. We'd work all the time just to survive.
We sold tires to people all over North Mississippi. Everywhere I go, just about now, Memphis, Jackson, any place I see people I used to sell tires to.
They were dedicated enough that we don't want to build a company, and they did build the company.
They took care of the customer. That was the number one priority. You take care of your customer and you'll get more business. That's the way we always operate. Bob operated that way.
You just don't see a lot of folks going into the tire business today. It's hard work. You get your hands dirty.
As a child, Westmoreland Heights was almost like a company town. The majority of the people that lived in that subdivision worked for Dunlap and Kyle.
All the families were kind of interconnected in some way. It was like an extended family almost.
The 2 things that were constant in that town was the city of New Orleans train would come through and you'd hear that lonesome whistle blow. And the other thing was at 7:30 in the morning, that steam whistle would blow at Dunlap and Kyle Tire Company, and that was the call to work. It was part of the fabric of that community. Just having that steam whistle blow every day was just a sign that the world was still going around.
We grew up hunting and fishing, going to the lake, whatever we did. We just thought that was normal. but it was always with company people.
Back then, Bob walked miles when you were hunting. He didn't sit in a stand. There was no sitting.
Dunlap and Cowell included this part, the warehouse. It included the Chevrolet dealership. It included across the street where Dunlap and Cowell Oil Company was. And it included the retread plant that was located on 51 at that time.
We had a retread plant, and we were handling Goodyear tires.
We were the biggest Goodyear dealer in the Memphis district at that time.
We were selling so many Goodyear tires, they put me on a Goodyear dealer cancel, and they'd fly me to Akron.
He didn't like doing business with a major like that because they tell you how to do business. And they send you literature and bill you for it, and they tell you what to sell the tire for, and he didn't want that sort of thing. He wanted to be his own businessman and do it the way that he wanted to do it.
Got your snake there?
Yeah, I killed him earlier, but he wasn't quite dead when I shot him.
We started building on Caulk Island in 2010. Now this is a 17,000 square foot, he calls it a cabin. We call it the Little Bass Pro Shop.
That one didn't happen. This is up to date now. This here's got 11 riders, 12.
Those trees are about 30 years old. 100 years from now, those will really be something. In the fall of '57, started raining and never quit. Rained the whole damn fall. They couldn't get no cotton out. I do not know how he survived, but I saw that.
After watching his father have to go and take these people's combines and cotton pickers and tires off of vehicles and stuff, that he never, ever had the heart to do that.
I wanted no part of that. Man, maybe that helped put him down, but he had a stroke in 1960.
When Mr. Jack had his stroke, they broke up the company. Bob took the tire business, John Ed took the Chevrolet dealership at Oxford, and John Cowell took the Dunlap Cowell Oil Company and Southside.
That's when we started, really, in 1960. Sears Roebuck was so big in those days, and they sold all state tires. And I had a lot of good friends. And I had one up in Akron named Paul Klein. He and another guy up in the Northeast controlled all those tires. And he would ship us as many as we ever wanted to order and never questioned our credit.
We had tires stacked everywhere. I mean, there must have been like 10,000 to 15,000 tires, and that got us started.
They formed this group called the Cordovan Group, and the idea was to have buying power, to be able to order vast quantities of tires, and each one of them get some of those tires. And then they decided, well, let's do this thing a little different. Let's take 50 cents a tire and 25 cents a battery to keep in a kitty to form a real wholesale operation. And so that ran up to be quite a bit of money over a few years. And that's when they formed TBC, Tire and Battery Corporation.
I always said I'd rather have half of a big deal than all of nothing.
We've had recessions. Sure. And his main thing is we don't choose to participate in a recession. Everybody else can participate if they want to, but Dunlap and Cowell is not going to participate.
He always felt like the tire business was fairly recession-proof, that there'd be swings in the economy up and down, but when the economy was bad, people held cars longer, which meant they needed to buy tires more.
He was a good businessman, that's for sure. And it would have been hard to find a better man to work for than Bob Dunlap.
When we first met, and his retail business was a small part of his business, he said to me, he doesn't believe in advertising. Well, I never heard of a retailer that doesn't believe in advertising. And then as time went on, I was amazed at what results he was getting out of retail without advertising. In his hands, the level of success was beyond the norm. And that method of operating is how he operates today.
He pays vast attention to figures. You could take him a financial statement, he'd look at that thing and thumb through it, go down that sheet and say, this doesn't total up. Just that quick. It's not right. Redo it.
The first time I met Mr. Bob, I was with my dad, and we went to the recap store in Batesville, which was Dunlap and Cowell, as I recall, because we bought all of our tires there. And from that point on, my family and I bought recap tires until that plant closed. And then we started buying Dunlap and Cowell tires, but long before Gateway was created. And we now buy them from Gateway.
The Gateway Corporation would be your retail stores. Your Dunlap and Cowell is your wholesale division. So as he got into retail, that made a big difference. You had more employees, but also you had a lot more growth because you got more volume.
We carry, of course, passenger tires. Any type light truck tire, SUV tire, medium truck tires, farm tires, implement tires, front tractor tires, rear tractor tires.
It really changed when I first went there. The mule barn, we loaded tires out of the front door and the back door. It was just a little company then. Look at it now.
We have been able to grow the business quite a bit in the last 7 years. We've grown to about 1.4 billion, which is about double from where we were 7 years ago.
Now we're buying from everywhere, East Germany and Yugoslavia and Poland and the Slovak Republic. It's gone into China, and Thailand is a huge country for us today.
We've done a lot of work with the culture of the company and trying to get the employees where they feel very included. A lot of those guys in the warehouse know a whole lot more than what I know about what goes on out there. So we got a lot of these good ideas straight up from the employees that work in the warehouse.
It all comes back to that one thing. If you have good product and you take care of your customer and you really value their business, at least in that day and time, you could take 4 or 5 guys and start a company and grow it into, in their lifetime, 1,200 employees, and set a business model in place that will double that company in size.
Mississippi is successful in business and industry because of the leadership of Mr. Bob Dunlap.
The things that he enjoys the most are letters from customers saying that they appreciate and they got good service and for just fixing something as fixing a flat, you know. But those little things, they just compound business.
Absolutely never taking advantage of one soul at any time for any reason. Today, due to all of that, I do the banking for the company, and all I have to do is pick up the phone with any banker anywhere and just do business. It's just amazing, but it takes a long time to accomplish that.
He talks to everybody like the guy at the bottom of the totem pole is just as important as the guy at the top.
He said, everybody says that I'm a really smart businessman, but he said, I think I'm a better judge of character and knowing who I'm dealing with. And he said that's what made this company, was the character of all these men that was so clear to see.
Bob knows in his heart that the reason he's where he is today is because of all the people that worked at Dunlap and Cowell, that continue to work at Dunlap and Cowell, and he knows they share his values, and the reason the company is where it is today is because of the people that are working there.
I knew it's going to work. If you've got the people, good people, and they have an opportunity to do well for themselves, it's never been a problem. A good friend of mine from North Carolina, he has a daughter that must be a great artist up in New York. And she made a portrait, and it hung in the Metropolitan Museum of Art for a month or several weeks or whatever it was. But I just always said I wish some old Navy buddies had gone through there and saw me hanging up there in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But I wouldn't take anything for that picture. And I think that's the best place we could put it is right up there.
Oh, I've been working here for Mr. Bob over 50 years. We hope a lot of people not only benefit off of him, it's just everybody around.
That company provided jobs for so many people who are making a good living and able to support their families and put their kids through school.
I actually laid at the front desk because I see Mr. Bobby Dunlap. This man came out from the back and with this cigar in his mouth, the biggest cigar I ever seen in my life. And I said, sir, I'm in need of a job. Whatever I have to do. I mean, I'll wash the trucks, the 18-wheelers, I cut the grass. Whatever you need me to do, I do it. I mean, I just want to work for the company. Started talking about education. And I said, yes, sir, I graduated high school. Currently, I'm in junior college. He looked at me up and down. He said, I'll tell you what. You go back there and tell them to give you a time card. You come here Monday morning.
He saw a young man that basically didn't have anything, that was struggling educational-wise, and determined to go to college.
Everybody that worked for that company and everybody that invested in that company's children had the opportunity to get a college education.
When I was going Northwest, he let me come in and work in the morning. I worked in the afternoon until I went to school between time. He put me on full time so I get benefits.
So many of our problems today in our society can be cured by giving people, young people, a good education, and that is of the utmost importance, and he's adamant about that.
He's really interested in educating people, helping them to be self-sufficient so that they can take care of themselves and their families.
He has contributed millions of dollars enabling Mississippians who maybe otherwise would not have an opportunity to further their education.
He was a young man that had had some problems, had a family, had a wife, 2 kids, been in prison, couldn't get a job. Mr. Dunlap wanted to give him a chance. So he brought him in, we hired him, we put him to work, and we explained to him what we wanted. And he worked hard. And we saw that he could do that. So, we went to Mr. Dunlap and told him, said, look, this kid is gonna he can do more than just mount tires. He's capable, but he really wants to go to school. He wants to finish school, never finished school. He said, well, hey, let's, send him to school.
Dunlap's position is that there are no more faithful employees than somebody who has nothing in front of them, criminal record. Nobody's ever going to give them a chance, and that these people, if you educate them, the dividends are paid way, way beyond that college education, just in loyalty to the company.
I think it's just a matter of turning someone around and making them productive citizens, somebody that wants to do better and knows that they've messed up and they just need a chance.
Imagine the people whose lives been thrown away without getting a second chance. And Mr. Bob gave people a second chance.
He can evaluate people, and I don't, it's just an innate sense he has. He sees quality in certain people that maybe some other people don't see that.
He's willing to look at you and say, hey, are you willing to work? Are you willing to stay out of trouble? Are you willing to keep your nose clean? I think I can help you with that second chance.
There are people in college right now that Bob is either paying for their education or assisting them in their education.
And I think the return on that investment, it's not just that person, but it changes families for generations.
He doesn't advertise that he does it. He just does it.
I asked my then store manager about tuition reimbursement that Gateway offered. Sent me over to the office, and that's when I first met Mr. Dunlap. And this was January 19th, 2012, and talked to Mr. Dunlap, and January 23rd was Monday, and I was fully enrolled at the University of Mississippi, full scholarship.
One day I'm sitting in my office and the phone rings. This lady that lives down at Curtis, she said, I've got a niece that's here babysitting for me while I go to work every day, that's wanting to go to college at Northwest. I didn't know the lady that called me, and I sure didn't know her niece. I said, just have her come up here. I'll introduce her to him. And so she comes in, and they get to talking and everything, and I stay a few minutes, and I went on back to work. He ended up paying for her college at Northwest, but she had to send him her grades every 9 weeks and every semester, and he told her she had to keep at least a B average or something. And then she went to state, and he paid for her college there.
He met a little girl one time at the downtown grill, and she was having a hard time getting through school. He said, give me your name and number, and you won't have any worries, I'll just pay for the rest of your tuition. And she went over to one of the other men and said, "Is he serious? Is he really going to do this?" And he said, if Bob Dunlap tells you he's going to do it, it's going to be done.
Most of the people that he helps through college, it's tied to a certain grade point average. I mean, you got to keep, I'm going to help you out, but you got to do your part.
He gets his biggest thing when they come back and shake his hand and show him his grades. He loves that, that's what he wants.
When he helps somebody, he says to them that what he wants them to do when they have an opportunity is to go back to the place that they're from and do something good in that community.
He really has a dedicated interest in helping young people.
He invests in enabling other Mississippians to be the best they can be.
He didn't know who I was, never met me, didn't have a clue who I was, but he gave a young guy like me an opportunity to work and earn money the right way.
I can't even put into words what it's done for my life, what it's done for my family's life. It's just amazing.
I would have a hard time telling you how many people that I had called Bob on over the years that he has hired coming out of prison. In one of those cases is a young man named Camario Hens. He put Camario through business school at Ole Miss, and he runs a Gateway Tire and Service Center in Memphis.
As a youngster, I made, some bad decisions. And those decisions, they landed me in prison. He gave me that opportunity, and I haven't let him down. And I told him then, I said, "You just give me a chance, I won't let you down." And he told me, "I'm going to take you for your word on that." And I've been working for him now 13 years, and it's been great.
He took those who were the least among us, who are dragging that ball and chain of a felony conviction, straight into, $100,000 plus a year job. It's incredible.
I owe a lot to that man, a lot. I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I do and live as comfortable as I live now if it wasn't for the opportunity that he gave me. So I'm very much appreciative of that.
Bob has been a mentor. He's been a father figure. He's given, so much advice on being a man, being responsible, taking care of your business, being able to set goals, succeed at those goals, and keep striving in life.
Many, many Mississippians have a higher quality of life because of Mr. Bob Dunlap's leadership.
That's just a lasting impact. To be able to create a situation where people have so much future, it's a great thing.
He's been a very generous supporter of Millsaps. He actually is on our bell tower, which signifies people who've given over $1 million to the college. He could name every teacher that he had from the time he was a first grader through high school.
Miss Mamie Jeffries, Miss Woodruff, Miss Irene B. Orr, Miss Vesti, Miss Herring, Miss Rachel White. In the 8th grade was Miss Leona Bearden.
The teachers were so important to him, and he keeps asking the question, why can't we raise up generations of people who would be willing to go in and continue that most important role as teacher?
The dean of the School of Business at the University of Mississippi was raising money to improve a business school at Ole Miss. And Dr. Box came over to raise money for this renovation. Dr. Box had showed him a brochure of the committee that they had gotten organized to raise this money. And he was looking at the credentials of these various people on the committee, and the chairman of the committee was the president of Cracker Barrel. And so Bob told Dr. Box, said, "Dr. Box, I've got some partners, but we've got some property out here at Highway 55 and Highway 6 in Batesville, and the Cracker Barrel people have looked at it and are interested in it, but they can't decide between this site and one a little to the north on I-55 or one a little to the south on I-55. If you'll get this gentleman with Cracker Barrel to decide on Batesville, I will donate $100,000 to the business school." And Dr. Box said, let me look into that. And so, sure enough, the Cracker Barrel chose Batesville. Bob told me later, he said Dr. Box didn't know it, but I was going to give him the $100,000 anyway.
What he's meant just to this university is tremendous. He wanted to know how he could make a difference, and so he invested his resources into programs here at Mississippi State that allowed our faculty to not only work with him, but work with landowners all across the state.
I've heard him say before, we have enough doctors and lawyers, we need more foresters. So he loves the forestry program at Mississippi State. I know it's helped them a lot.
I remember the first time I met him, and it wasn't long after the introductions, he said, "So how can I help you?" That's how he started the conversation.
The political power that they garnered from becoming a bigger company, they didn't use it for personal gain. They used it to make that place a better place to live.
It's mind-boggling to think of where the little town of Batesville would be had there not been a Dunlap Cow.
He's done so much for that county and the South Panola High School and giving back. That's where he's from. Those are his people.
He has succeeded in life, and he brought a lot of other people along with him.
He is an amazing man on many fronts, but there are so many other parts to Bob that are at least as incredible as his business history and his success. One of them is his generosity, which knows no bounds.
One year when we first started out schools having computers, of course South Panola had 0. And so they came up here and asked him would he help. And he said, "I'd be glad to." Said, "Y'all go out and raise what money you can," and the total was $35,000. And he said, "I'll pay the difference." Well, they came back and they needed $35,000. So he paid it.
I spent 10 years working with the Corps of Engineers, wanting to build a little scout camp, a primitive camp. And I put a little money in it, and we raised some money, and we were a good bit short. Well, I went to Bob and said, "Bob, we want to build this pavilion. I want you to help me out." And he welcomed the opportunity, and he was the major donor behind that. And now we have a wonderful primitive camping area called Tent Camp Tubby Tubby that has a pavilion called the Bob Dunlap Pavilion.
The football stadium in Batesville, Mississippi, where South Panola High School plays, is Bob Dunlap Stadium.
We have a significant challenge in the Mississippi Delta. The median household income is $24,000 a year. 7 to 9% of our kids are in single parent households. So I told Mr. Bob, we're building this program to try to strengthen our communities and our youth with food drives, education, mentoring, character building, the whole 9 yards. He said, "Here's $20,000. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Bob, 20 who? Here's $20,000.
The service to your community and the desire to give back is something I think he's always had. And I mean, he has been very, fortunate as a businessman, but he just feels compelled to help those around him, and he's been doing it for a long time.
Mr. Bob Dunlap cast a long shadow, and yet he is such a humble person, the nicest gentleman you would ever meet. He genuinely cares for people, and he really gets pleasure in life by helping others succeed.
I don't know that I've ever met a person as generous as he is.
Me and my wife got married and then found out we was expecting not too long afterwards. We got a new house, and I had tried to buy everything out of our pockets. And I'd spent down to where we just had a little to live on. And I'd got everything but a washer and a dryer. Somehow Mr. Dunlap got word about it. And man, it was one day I come home and I was shocked. I had a brand new washer and dryer just sitting there waiting on me.
Bob thought about his people working for him, and he took care of them.
A man that successful is willing to take time to help out me, a little old runt kid from Alligator, Mississippi. And to me, that defines, the greatest character there is.
He likes to put on a rough front, but he's got a big heart.
We take in 5,500 animals, and we adopt out over 2,000. Bob helps support, but he can't take it. He does not like to come inside. It just tears him up.
His generosity is just incredible, and he keeps coming back to, what are we going to do to help Mississippi?
These are chestnut oaks that we raised from seedlings and planted them, and it's a great tree. So many people, and especially all the going people, they call them sawtooth. It is not a sawtooth oak, it's a chestnut oak. And they grow fast, and it's just a great tree for wildlife. Oaks on there, we should have had a lot more of them.
Look at that little white oak right there by mine. See, it's leaking out now, Bob. Laurel oaks there too. Two of them's them swamp white oaks, just like that.
There's a lot of cypress in here. They didn't tell us to plant cypress. How you gonna beat a good cypress tree?
You can't beat a cypress down
with
here.
a pecan tree. As I got 11, 12 years old, I got into Boy Scouts. Took us on all kind of trips, camps in the summer up in Camp Currier.
3 of us got Eagle Scouts, and that was the first Eagle Scouts they'd ever had in Batesville.
I remember a merit badge on trees, and I got interested in trees at that time. I used to order trees for some nursery up north, and I bet it couldn't have been over $5 or $10 and get a dozen trees. Then I didn't have any place to plant them. I'd planted trees on other people's land.
Trees are number one. That's what he's got on his mind, I believe, 24/7. And yeah, it's catching.
I'd say that his two passions, in addition to business, are Boy Scouts and conservation.
All of the men that helped start this company, most of us lived in the little subdivision of Westmoreland Heights. And on Christmas morning, you literally would get up and open your Christmas presents. And then you left and went to what was referred to as the Red Lion Hunting Club outside of Oxford, where Bob lives now. They bought some land from a couple of people and put a little deer camp together. That effort was made so that all of these people that helped form this company, that they would always have a place to hunt and fish, and that their children would always have a place to hunt and fish.
The guys would be in the bunkhouse playing cards, but the boys would be all around the campfire, and we learned a lot sitting around that campfire.
We plant food plots in fall and spring, control burns, tree planting, lakes throughout the property. He's thought of everything for the wildlife.
But if we can never get all these trees buried, it'll feed all the deer in this country.
I've been here since 1970, and I've seen the benefits that it's made and the changes that it's made over the years.
I was there when he planted those trees as saplings, where he had pecan orchards and fruit orchards and grass fields. I have great memories of fishing there with my grandson, and Bob coming across a levee, cigar in his mouth, 2 German shepherds in the back of that old Jeep say, "Here, Lid, come on, let's do some riding." Got that cigar in his mouth. I'd drop my pole, and we'd ride all over there, and we'd just talk.
He talks about the trees. He talks about why they're there and you know what its productivity is for the wildlife.
I don't know of anybody that does as much for reforestation as Mr. Bob does.
We started hunting on Calk Island in 1968, and at the time it belonged to a Chicago company called U.S. Gypsum, but they would lease the hunting rights. Well, Mr. Hamilton Ryle from McGee, Arkansas, had the lease on that island.
At one time, this place had never really been cut. It was all virgin timber. Gypsum Company got it. They cut trees in our yard that were just mammoth pecan trees.
Yes, Gibson decided to sell all of their holdings up and down the Mississippi River. We decided we just had to buy that piece of property. It was just too unique.
They came over here and saw what was here. And, you know, in his mind, oh my goodness, this could be a heaven.
That was really the last project Daddy worked on, was the beginning process of setting aside 12,000 acres of hardwood bottomland in the middle of the Mississippi River.
When the timber company left, you know, they just planted something that grow fast and they could make money on it. He started planting stuff with nuts, something to feed the animals.
We started in 1986 planting trees, and we planted around 1.82 million. This coming year we're going to plant 64,000, mostly all hardwood.
When people plant trees, they're looking to the future. When people plant hardwood trees, they're looking well into the future.
Judge Bramlett was explaining to Bob about the natural life of a hardwood forest. He was sure that Bob understood what 10,000 acres of hardwood might be worth at some point. He was trying to explain from a financial standpoint and talking in terms of 100, 150, 200 years. And Bob said, money is not a part of this conversation on any level. I don't care what it'll be worth 100 years from now. And I want you to quit thinking in terms of 100 years. I want you to start thinking in terms of 1,000 years.
There's no financial incentive in what he's doing right here and now on this place. It's strictly love of nature.
We didn't realize that we were really witnessing somebody who had a vision for what a piece of property could be.
From the first day I knew him, he has tirelessly restored this part of the country to something that you see today that you won't find in many places elsewhere.
There's nothing like it now in the South. Nothing along the river like this.
We've planted all kinds of species of oaks, chestnut oaks, white oaks, swamp white oaks, nuttalls, shumard, cherry barks.
The fact that he's planting those trees now, knowing full well that he'll never be able to see them mature, says a lot about who he is, but he understands conservation. It's about the future. It's about leaving your land in a better condition than when you got it.
What he's doing is he's got a vision of what he would like to have seen that island be 100 years ago. And that's his game now, is to make sure 100 years from now, it's that way.
To replenish this island back to how it was when Hernando de Soto came upon it.
To see him spend millions of dollars and all this hard work and time into that dream, it's unbelievable. It's amazing.
Planting those trees is going to be a legacy to a life which seems to have been dedicated to making this world a little bit better place.
I'd love to come back in 150 years or 200 and just look at it myself, but I bet it'd be something.
As that company grew, his efforts grew. And you know, when you think about somebody having a tire company and selling tires, not a easily recyclable product, you know, something that can be taxing on the environment. And it's just always struck me how much he offset that by what he has done by planting millions of trees on, you know, 17,000 acres of land in Mississippi.
It's a success story of restoration of what was here many, many years ago.
There may well not be another tract of property in, you know, 100 years from now like that 12,000 acre island in the Mississippi River.
And he's still planting, and he'll plant trees until he dies up there.
This coming year we're going to plant 64,000, mostly all hardwood.
Anytime that some land was for sale and I didn't buy it, it was a mistake. Anytime I sold a piece of land, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have sold it.
He would plant trees on other people's property when he ran out of room on his own. That's the truth.
All the younger guys that were that grew up there, almost every one of us ended up buying property and improving on that property by planting trees and trying to, help the wildlife.
He's given me some trees to plant. I have a little farm out from town, and I plant trees every year now. And I think The whole thing about planting trees is it's a perpetual gift that's going to be here long after we're gone.
Bob always would tell us that if you get a piece of property, try to make it better than it was when you purchased it.
And the more you plant trees and see them grow, I think there's a sense of accomplishment. And even on my farm, trees I planted 10, 12 years ago now are 15 feet tall and having acorns, and it's just, it's a great feeling when you do that.
Well, when he goes to the island, we all laugh about it, but he gets in his Jeep and 2 or 3 people ride with him. You could actually see the grass grow, the Jeep goes so slow.
I've ridden many a time and many a mile around Calk Island with Bob, and we never got out of first gear.
The Dunlap crawl now, when he gets here, it's not long, if the weather permitting. He's going to that open Jeep with his cigar and probably a thermos of coffee. It'll be in double low, first gear, and if he's trying to make a little time to get to someplace, you'd probably be in second.
It don't stir up any dust. I mean, the dust could be that deep, they won't stir up any dust.
You can walk faster than he drives. And he carries an umbrella in that Jeep to where if it's raining too much, he'll put that umbrella up and still drive.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies to ride with him because, I want to go. I want to see stuff.
Somebody said something to him about it one time. He said, well, look, it's a beautiful thing. And he said, why get in a hurry? You got to look at everything. Look at that tree and that bush and whatever it is. If you're going fast, you just miss it. So you go.
A lot of them stakes right out there, though.
I ain't going out there.
But more of them are right down there.
I'm not going down there either.
Cottonmouths are crawling today.
Not around me.
We didn't even bring your pistol, Darryl.
The pistol's in the other Jeep and the gun's in the other Jeep.
There's been so many characters over here.
I mean, there's some friendships there that go back, 60 years.
George Crowder, if you grew up anywhere in Panola County in that part of the world, was almost a mythical figure. Bob had always told us that George was half Native American and that he had a way with animals that nobody else had. He was the only person that any of us had ever heard of who had coons in his backyard that he hunted with.
The card playing they used to have over here, oh my gosh.
Apparently, sort of what happens at Calk Island stays at Calk Island.
Down at Calk Island, the food is 5-star food, and the conversation is 5-star conversation. And there's never too much of either.
He just didn't care if you were his friend, even if you were an outlaw. It just didn't make any difference. You were still at the table and part of that crew, and he stayed loyal to you to the end.
I used to like to hunt. I don't care. It's been many years. I don't care to shoot anything anymore.
We were all standing out in front of his cabin over there, and we were talking about trees and how come you didn't hunt any, and he said that I've been through all that. I've been through all that hunting. He said, I just enjoy riding and looking and watching the deer and, planting trees. And he said, matter of fact, I'm gonna buy every one of y'all a pair of lobbers, so y'all can go by, every time you go by a tree, you need to prune it.
It's remarkable how somebody who was such an avid hunter has progressed in his life to the point where he just enjoys the beauty of it all. And to be able to ride around in the Jeep and park on the field and just watch deer and everything else that comes out into that field is plenty enough for him.
There'll never be another like him. His dedication to conservation of nature, as it should be, is remarkable.
I don't know, it's good for wildlife, it's good for everything down there. And you leave something like that people can enjoy from now on.
I realized that at almost 95, everything takes its course. And I said, you got to make it to 100. He said to me, oh, God damn, Howard. He said, I'm building warehouses that are going to take me another 20 years to do. So he says, I'm going to be here till at least 115, 120, and we'll take another look at it then.
Bob Dunlap embodies the best of Mississippi. I mean, here's a guy that grows up in a small farming community of Batesville, Panola County, and starts his business really in a barn. He builds that business into a company that operates all across North America, 2,000 employees, revenues over $1 billion a year, and he's one of Mississippi's greatest success stories.
He's always calm, he never yells, he's never angry, and he gets the job done, and I think the people around him worship him, and for good reason.
He's, a humble man who's established an unbelievable business
enterprise in his community and our state and across the nation, but he still has a passion for helping others. And that's what a philanthropist is.
He's just that way. He is not looking for publicity. You know, he's just there to help people.
This is a quote from him himself. As long as I can get up and go to work, I can continue to help.
His ability was to hire good people at their job that helped make this company grow.
He's got a successful business and he's got good people. But to have good people and to keep good people, you got to be the person that's pulling the strings every day. And he pulls those strings.
Bob always does his best. Maybe that's part of his Eagle Scout training, but he brings out the best in others. And that maybe is one of the secrets of the success of Dunlap and Kyle, is that people give their best, and that enables the company to achieve its goals on a global scale.
Bob is a true force of nature. He's a force of nature in business, he's a force of nature in education, and he's a force of nature when it comes to generosity and supporting those who need a second chance. He's a driven, dynamic force of nature when it comes to conservation, preserving natural areas, and planting trees.
He's a force of nature when it comes to being a character and somebody who is still can tell a great story. I will never know anybody like that again in my lifetime.
None of us make it alone. You always have people in the background that are helping you or trying to steer you in the right direction, whether you know it or not.
I think after he had his little stint with heart trouble, he said, yeah, if I can just be around for another 10 years. So why another 10 years? Well, I want to get 10 more stores open. 10 more stores to employ more people, to give more people a chance to have jobs, to work.
At the end of our life, when we have to look in the mirror and say, you know, have I made a difference? He certainly can, and he's continuing to do that.
He lives life. If ever there were a guy that lives life, it's Bob Dunlap.